You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
Hey guys, Zoom the TBT, and we have one of my favorite all-time teams, one of the very first teams of TBT, Eberlein Drive. Jake Hirschmann and Matt Mitchell, co-GMs, and Vinny Vetrone, I guess assistant coach and Grand Poobah, we'll call them. The team, the sort of brain melt behind the thing. How are you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Doing great, Hayner. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. A little tired. It's been a long day. The end of the school season just got done teaching, so I got one brain cell left, but I want to use it on you guys tonight. So, Jake, let's talk a little bit about. So, first of all, people who follow the program, follow TBT, follow what this is about, know about this brand, know about Eberlein Drive, know about the story, but educate the newbies. What is Eberlein Drive about? How did it come about? How did this happen?
Eberlein Drive is the street I grew up on, the street I'm sitting on right now in Fraser, Michigan, a suburb outside of Detroit. Back in 2014, me and my friends who lived on the street learned about TBT. 5'10" white kids showed up, played against Smush Parker, lost by 50. I ended up in the hospital, but found out TBT was a blast. Played in the second game ever of TBT. Matt Mitchell himself there played in the first ever game. We decided to team up after that, and we've been riding under the Eberlein Drive name the whole 12 years since.
And Eberlein Drive, I believe, still is, I think, the only team to be in every TBT, correct?
Sideline cancer as well.
Sideline, those two. And they're both going to be in Kentucky this year. You guys are going to Lexington. They're going to Louisville. Two-story programs. Looking forward to seeing both of them this summer. Can't wait, in fact. Two great TBT life programs. Matt, you also played in TBT. You both have playing experience. And obviously, you guys have found your correct level as GMs. Jake had a storied career as a player. You also had a career. What was it like playing in TBT?
It was a blast. I think, back then we didn't know what we were getting into. We kind of thought it might be a little bit better than like pickup, but we realized pretty quickly it was much higher end event than that. And we too played against some former NBA guys, Hakeem Warwick and others. And so it was an awesome experience. Like Jake, we also lost, but had a blast playing, and it was a memory that I'll never forget for sure.
Jake, what was it like ending up in the hospital after playing basketball? How did that come about?
I'm pissed because I was cooking. I was 3 for 9. I hit back-to-back threes over Luke Bonner. But he unfortunately dunked on me, and I fell on my elbow, and it blew up to the size of like a grapefruit. So then Dan Friel himself stretchered me off, and I got taken to the nearest hospital, which was a women's hospital for pregnant women. And they took care of me real good. And I got out of there, found out we lost by 50, and the rest is history.
There we go. But hey, 3-9 is not bad. Now, Vinny, obviously, these guys have been around for a while. You have a history as well, being a coach, a booster, and a scout, and also mainly just a coach for teams like, I believe, Armored Athlete. I think you were Team Brotherly Love at one point.
Jimmy V. Team Jimmy V.
I always think Jimmy V. You were Jimmy V, which was a fun thing. You also did some Friday Beers Time, which has an implication on this team. So how did you get hooked up with these two guys?
So we did Team Jimmy V for 3 years. And after my guys kind of bowed out on me, I got with AJ over there for Friday Beers. And then when he went to the alumni team side, the reason I got on this was to kind of just put a vision together that wasn't associated with a university. And these two guys, they're the epitome of that. So, when you look at TBT, and they've been in every TBT and also every TST. So every event that's ever been involved with the brand, they've been in it. So once I started talking to them, and Matt's just a good guy, Jake, but once I got with Matt, I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be. So I found a nice home here.
I like they're both really nice guys, but there's always like the whole like hilarious thing about how they met and how they're kind of different guys. Now, hang on. So Jake, taking on Vinny, obviously talks about the fact you guys are a non-alumni team, and the non-alumni teams have a deep history in this event. Obviously, OE, Older Versus Elites, won 4 times. There's been a lot of guys. You guys have made 2 deep runs. So what's it like being a non-alumni event or non-alumni team in an event that really prioritizes, I mean, for financial reasons, the correct call, teams with the built-in fan base? Like, what is it as a different experience being a non-alum based team?
In a lot of ways, it feels like we're like the little guy that could. Like we have the deck stacked against us. Like aside from not being an alumni team, we're also not really associated with like a big brand like Team Diesel or a lot of these other brands. And so, I think what makes Matt and myself and Vinny too so proud now, like, is we're just three dudes who love basketball. And we do this in our free time, even though it's like full-time hours basically. And year after year, we grind it out. We take incredible care of our players, despite just doing it all ourselves. We put together year after year some of the best teams in the tournament with some of the best talent. Like I said, I think over the 12 years, we've had 30 to 40 guys with NBA experience. And like you said, made two super deep runs. And so I think really now it's just Matt and I and Vinny, we're just so proud that we've been able to do this with no boosters, no big financial backing from a company or a school. We don't have players fed to us. Like we're just kings of like DMing guys, basically. That's like what we're good at.
There's a former GM I talked to a lot of friends with who he used to GM a team. He doesn't anymore, but he is at this point a house husband. So he's available when I'm walking the dogs. I talk to him a lot for that reason because he spends a lot of time making sandwiches for kids. And he said that yeah, it's a good gig if you can get it. I mean, having a wife with a real job and sitting at home is probably the dream, right? But so I'll talk to him about running a DM. He goes, you got to have hustle or you got to have money. And Matt, you guys don't have any money, right?
It's been something we've struggled with year in, year out. So we are scraping together pennies and we'll continue to do that until we get to TBT. And then as it comes to fruition and we're in August, we'll be trying to figure out ways to start doing it again for next year. But like Jake said, it's been a challenge that we've embraced and it's one that we've kind of taken some pride in being able to kind of overcome all those obstacles of being maybe the the little guy that could, I guess you could say. So that's what we've been hanging our hat on.
Yeah, that's a pretty good place to hang on. I got something for you for a minute, Benny, but I do want to stay with Matt for 1 second and also Jake a little bit because the TST guys mentioned. We don't mention TST on the show, not for any reason or any malice, because it's like we like soccer's a fun sport, but it's just there's so many hours of the day, and like I'm not going to talk about sport I don't understand the same way. I have pretty understanding the basketball. Soccer, I understand the ball goes in, yay, my team won. That's the level of soccer expertise I have. I root for the ball to go in the net. If my team's won the net, I do this, and that's it. So has your and we'll start with Matt, we'll go to Jake on this one in a minute. Has your TST experience educated your TBT experience from the GM side?
I would say, going back to your last question about financing and funding, we've been really fortunate in TST to secure a good financial partner and a big brand that sees the value and the promotion they get out of an event like TST. And when you have that kind of backing, it takes a lot of the stress out of everything that we do. Um, but so that's something I've learned and we've tried desperately to find the right partners and align with. And sometimes that means even not being too prideful to, you know, give some promotion or credit and shine to another brand. Like we're Eberlein Drive, and sure, the two of us or three of us are proud of that, but it doesn't mean much for too many people. And so maybe at some point we have to consider, aligning with a bigger brand that can help us to continue to do this. But um, fortunately in TST we have had that luxury, I guess you could say. But as far as I think it's probably more the other way around. Our success in TST, in my opinion, is very much hinged on everything we've done in TBT. And the years of experience we've had there. It's a different sport, like you mentioned, but as far as just how to run an operation, all the logistics, all the back end kind of operational side of things, it's very seamless in a lot of ways. So I think we've been fortunate to have that experience, and it's allowed us to have some quality runs and good teams in TST as well.
Definitely. Organizations where you guys think, I know how much you hustle. Vinny, I got a player question for you first, but I want to go back to this with Jake because the money thing is tough because this is getting to be a more expensive thing. And I've always admired the fact you guys have been able to do great teams you guys have gotten champagne taste and beer budgets and you made it work over now. I guess this will be the 12th year or something like that. So it's been really crazy. Jake, getting sponsors is tough. And I know you guys have had it in the past. You're trying to get sponsorship, but there's a thing you were thinking about selling some prime real estate to get a sponsor. You want to make that offer real quick?
I don't have any tattoos. My arms are empty. My face is empty. My neck is empty. And if any sponsor wants to tattoo my body, 10K, that's the number. So.
Whoa, yeah, I know. We should actually. I might have to edit that down. I think you meant 30K. You want to try it again? You want to just say that?
30K. That's the number.
30K. He said 30K. 10K. We might bleep that out. I actually don't ever edit these things if I can help it, but I might actually go
Hayner, I
back and
think you
edit
would be
that.
disgusted with how low I would go. So
No. I always admire a high level cheap prostitute, so I can understand the concept of guys going for selling their body for money is a time honored tradition. It is the oldest profession for a reason. Now, you and I, Jake, have two of the other oldest professions that are similar. I mean, being a lawyer, being an architect, they're also basically being prostitutes. So we all kind of already are in that sort of thing. So I'm always funny too because people don't know Jake practices law. He's got all these books behind him. I'm like, oh, yeah, a guy who reads a lot. And Jake, what'd you say when I asked about the books in your library?
I said, this is my father's library. I never read ever. So
It's funny too because like guys, once they get to a profession, like I assume law school is a lot of reading, right?
it's supposed to be.
So, yes, it's supposed to, there you go, perfect. So it's like always the things that you get to the prudent point professional. It's like, do you draw a lot now? And I'm like, oh God, no, I draw what I have to draw. A lot of it's just yelling at people at this point in my job. So
I got
anyway,
to
no
the
one
point
cares.
where I don't need to read
Yeah.
anymore. We're good. We're
Okay,
good.
good. I can't read, so it makes sense. Vinny, okay, so you got these two guys. These guys are exceptional. They have this existing brand that the lifers know. They're really a team from the your teams or your turn or your team's your term era, which is the old hashtag. It's not the hashtag anymore. We can talk about the reason why. I think we all know it's kind of gotten a little more corporate as it has to as it grows. It's fine. But it's a throwback team. When you help recruit players for Eberlein, how does it align with your personal taste and the kind of players you like to recruit?
Yeah, so part of my reason for sticking with a non-alumni and obviously again with Matt and Jake, when you're with an alumni team, you're kind of pigeonholed to, your imagination and what you can do, and you're limited to, you need to have a certain number of alumni from that school. So when me, Matt, and Jake sit down and we start talking about roster and construction, like these are GMs right here. You know what I'm saying? Like they really lock in and we really try and match things up so when they get out on the court, everything makes sense. And it also just allows you to just, you know, we do it in the purest form, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. These teams always have a good mixture of players. Being able to cast a wide net does help you get the best players you can get for this, what you're trying to do. And it's been helpful in the past. So last year, we won't get into all the details, but you guys had a magical run. We'll talk about the actual run in a minute because it was an amazing run. I want to talk about how we got you guys deep last year, how impressive it was. But it didn't start off the most auspiciously. Who wants to start? I'll open this question up. It was late one night when we were talking about a week before, I guess, go time or a couple weeks before go time. What was the timeline of the final roster coming out? Who wants to start that conversation? That was one of the more interesting moments I've dealt with talking to teams in the last 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to go, Matt?
I'll kick it off here, then I'll hand it over. But I think I was on up at the lake, my in-laws' lake place for the 4th of July weekend, I believe, and had family there with us, and we're trying to just figure out last minute things of details and logistics for TBT. Everything was looking fairly good.
You
And
had a really good squad. You had a really good squad.
Yes,
Keep
yes.
going. Yeah.
In the matter of like 30 minutes, we had 2 players that got offered by the same team in Puerto Rico. And so they had the last year with the Olympic window or all those things, the qualifiers, Puerto Rico did like a 1 week or 2 week hiatus in that season right around the playoffs because they had to take their players for the national team. And so both AJ Slaughter and Johnny O'Brien called me like within an hour and said, "You're going to kill me, but I just got offered a good amount of money to go play in Puerto Rico for 2 weeks. Like I can't not take it." And I said, "Yeah, you can't not take it. Totally get it. Hopefully we keep winning and you can link up with us after that window. But in the meantime, do you have anybody that might want to take your spot? Because we were scrambling and there's very little time." So that as soon as I hung up, I called these two and I was like, "Hey guys, we need a couple guys." And I think it ended up growing to maybe 3 or 4 players that was all said and done. But go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, so literally the next day after that, uh, a player that should remain nameless just basically told us he can't do it. Hurt our heart because we look at the game we lost against Houston and he probably would have matched up really well with them. And then also another player, I will say his name, Ryan Brown, bailed on us, went to go play for Indiana. But Ryan, if you're out there and you want to make it right, we could talk. but we ended up handling business against them later on in the tournament. But yeah, we lost 4 guys in like 36 hours. And then that's what led me to call you as my psychiatrist in the Wendy's parking lot to make sure that everything was going to be okay. And, you know, it ended up being pretty good.
You know how fucked up things are when you call me for a psychologist? That's the worst Pullman. Like, hey, I'm feeling down. Let's call Hainer. Oh my God, what is wrong in your life? So, Jake, you're scrambling. You have this great squad. All of a sudden, it's taken a 40 to 50% hit of players. You're calling everybody. What rocks your turn? Like, how many people would you call trying to fill out this roster at that point?
Gosh, I mean, we probably talked to Vinny especially. Vinny was kind of our call guy. Like
Yeah,
myself
sure.
and Matt and Zach were like on Eurobasket, just ripping through anybody relevant that was like alive, basically. And we're
Yeah.
just sending names in the chats. We were on Google Meets watching the worst videos from players in X country that you've ever seen in your life. And if anyone was semi-interesting, we're like, Vinny, call them. And we ended up signing 4 or 5 guys who were all great for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the last 36 hours, like I said, we signed Terrell Brown, who
Mm-hmm.
was a lifesaver for us. Almost won us the game in Houston. He's back with us this year.
And even he, real quick, storyline on that. I called him the first time, made him the pitch. He was super interested. He's like, I have some things I got to do. What are the dates again? So I told him, and he's like, yeah, I got to be home like the 25th or something, or 24th. And then we were desperate. I was like, just commit the first 3 games, like at max the 16th, 18th, and 20th. He's like, okay, let me talk to my agent, see what we can do. And he ended up calling me back like a couple hours later. He's like, all right, I'm in. And I didn't know if that meant for just the 3 games, the whole window, but we didn't ask any questions at that point. And I was like, hey, while I have you, do you have anybody else that would want to play with you? It's like, oh, yeah, I got a big guy that I just worked out with this morning. Maybe he'd want to play. And that was Nate Roberts, who ended up being our starting center for most of the tournament. So those were some of the insights of the last 36 hours trying to fill the roster together.
Yeah, and you had a guy flying in from you had a guy flying who left the Vegas Summer League. I think it's the same. I think it was on the same flight I might have been actually going from Vegas to the Midwest. And I think he land the morning of the game that one time?
Something like that. It was either like late the
Yeah.
night before, the morning of the Indiana game. Jake Stevens, 7'1" monster, shows up, hasn't met anybody on the team before. Matt and I just like tell him, hey, get some sleep in the morning at shoot around. We'll get some shots up. And he came in not knowing basically any of the offense or anything, but super smart dude, was super humble, was like, whatever you gotta want me to do, I'll do. And he ended up dropping 20 points in the game winner against Indiana. Like it was a gift from God. It was crazy.
Yeah. That was what it was. So 36 hours, you guys went from dead to scratching the roster. And even then, and most people who in the TBT community is a tight one. You call a lot of people you know. I mean, because the GMs are competitors, but most of the ones who've been a long time are friends. They talk to people. The phone calls are long. The phone calls are often. But you guys were dead. You guys didn't have a prayer. I mean, you guys were gonna just be roadkill. I think at one point, my thought was like, I hope they have a team they can go out with dignity and doesn't hurt their brand. I hope they can just get a decent first round loss, not feel bad. And gentlemen, that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. I saw you guys in Philadelphia. You guys won 4 games. So let's talk a little bit about the run through Indianapolis first, because you guys went and beat, it was 3 alumni teams in a row. You did it the absolute hardest possible way. Now I missed the first one, but who'd you guys beat in the first round? I missed that
Arkansas.
one. Arkansas, which is a really good team. And they had
Barford.
they have Barford, who's a killer, and that was a tough win. So right there, it's okay, you got the first one. And nothing hard next. All you gotta do next is play the host team, play Butler in Butler. And Hinkle Fieldhouse is an incredible place to watch or play a game. I imagine it's a historic venue. So it's a great place to play any team besides the team's own damn floor. You're playing on the team's floor, and you get there. It actually wasn't particularly close if memory serves. That game was pretty much done pretty soon. That's the one I was able to see you guys in person. I saw the Indiana game. That's right. And the next game you played Assembly Ball against Vinny's good friend and former co-GM AJ Mahar, who has a really good alumni team there. And they were I think they were pretty much prohibitive favorites over you guys. And the crowd was 120% red. It was like they had more fans in the parking lot than you guys had in the whole stadium. And you guys beat them pretty okay, actually. So that was, as far as like getting 3 wins in a region against 3 alumni teams and 2 of them in their house. Jake, you got the big smile. I'll ask you, how did that rank on like TBT accomplishments, that 3 games in a row?
I mean, it felt amazing, obviously. Like it was like we love beating alumni teams. It's just like fact. I mean, we will beat anybody who's in front of us ideally, but beating alumni teams is a little extra special. And last year's run was like probably my second favorite time I've ever done TBT aside from when we made the final in 2018. Obviously like the Arkansas win was big. Beating Butler at home was awesome. And then there was so much emotion going into the Indiana game, like knowing if you win, you go to another site. Obviously, all the history with Vinny, Jake Stevens coming in, like that Indiana game was incredibly emotional. And like you were right in that we were up big the entire game, but then we almost had the worst Elam ending loss, blown lead ever, literally. And again, Jake Stevens saved our lives, but I don't even know if you know this, but like literally as we're blowing the lead in Elam ending, Vinny had to leave the bench. He was so distraught. Vinny, I'll let you explain this, but like Vinny literally just disappeared, and Matt and I didn't even know.
I'll just walk you through it from me. Obviously, this last year was my 6th TBT, and to be honest, like I went to a Final Four the year before, but last year it was probably the most meaningful basketball I've probably ever been around in my life. Just like those 2 weeks and what it like meant. Tyler Stone saves our lives in the first game, gets crazy hot in the game, starts making everything. And he was with me with Jimmy V, was with me with Friday Beers, didn't get in the game for whatever reason, came back and, goes crazy, gets us that win. Then Butler, we had Jordan's from Indiana, Ertl was from Indiana. So that game kind of meant a lot to them to beat Butler, like at Butler, obviously. And then that Indiana game, obviously, with all the history with me and those guys and Jake coming in at midnight. Like, I don't know if anyone saw my reaction of me jumping on Jake Stevens. Like, I usually don't react like that, jumping on a grown man like that. But it was very exciting. But Jake was serious. Like, we were up 17 and we won the game by 2 points, 3 points. I don't know what it ended up being, 2 points, I think. And most of that stretch, I was pacing around the locker room, panicking until our trainer, Kenny Bennett, came and got me. And I came back up to see Jake make the game winner. And I was like, thank God.
Now, where did you guys play the quarterfinal when you beat Happy
Houston.
Valley? Houston. So you guys had and
Yep.
the great problem with this tournament is also travel. You're on your own. So it's like, oh, hey, listen, good job. Pack up your shit, fly to Texas. Here's a day's notice. Have fun.
Yeah.
And then just throw you in a plane, basically. And it's like, yeah, when you get there, here's some bottles of water. Good luck out there and play. The whole thing's nuts, right? So you win that game against, I think Sessions was on that team, pretty quality team, won that one pretty easily. You get to Philly. And this is the first truly deep run you guys have made in a while. You guys have won some games for you, you made the final one year. You had one of the best TBT non-championship years ever. But this is your first deep run in a while as a very modest 6th seed, and you get to play the Cougs, and the Magic did end. But you guys actually were down considerably by that game. And you kept coming back, and you almost came all the way back in it. So like, how crushing was it to come short in that game? I guess I'll ask. That's probably maybe we'll ask Matt that one. Matt, how crushing? Because you guys got so far, and you had this amazing run, and how crushing was it to not win? But also, how proud were your team? Because they went out on their shields. Like, even though they lost, they never quit. That game, you guys almost stole it, even though you were down. Because the reality is, you guys kept pulling back, and you had a chance to win that game. So, what was the mix of disappointment and just absolute pride in your team at that point?
I think that's probably the best way to put it, was a combination of both. But yeah, coming off 4 good wins with a team that we had kind of felt like we scraped together last minute. At that point, we were feeling really good heading from Houston to Philly. I think the belief was 100% there that we can win this thing. I think statistically, you could argue that we were probably one of the teams to beat. How we were shooting efficiently from the field, we were sharing the ball, everything was really clicking. And so the devastation comes when you all of a sudden have maybe your worst game of the tournament as a team, and multiple guys maybe have a lesser shooting night than they've all had all at the same time. So that was definitely devastating, but you're exactly right. I think even in the loss, super proud of how we fought back. We were getting dominated pretty well most of the game. And Terrell Brown, who's back with us this year, literally put the team on his back, single-handedly made tough bucket after tough bucket. And we get it to 1 with, next basket wins, basically. And so to lose in that kind of fashion makes it sting that much more. But when you get to the locker room and once the kind of reality sets in of that it's all over, the pride came shortly thereafter because we were definitely proud of the group we had, the fight that the guys gave, and just the overall camaraderie we had amongst guys 1 through 10 or whatever it was. It made it all worth it. I think Jake and I say this a lot. Like, of course, we want to win it. Winning it and winning the prize at this point, like, there's no ROI for us financially at this point. Like, we're still so deep in the red. We'd have to win 10 in a row before we start to feel good about it. But what we really get out of it and what we enjoy most is just the experience that we're able to, kind of provide some of these guys and the excitement and joy they have. I mean, the number of guys that have said, like, this is the most fun I've had playing basketball in a long time or ever. Those kind of comments keep you going and make you continue to have the success that you had last year. So it's a ton of pride for sure in that regard.
Jake, and does your hometown, like, does your area know this is happening? So you mentioned Eberlein Drive's hometown. It's like, do you walk the street to people going, hey, thanks for putting our little road on the map. Is that something that comes up occasionally when you're walking around?
The neighbors know about it. Like,
Okay.
it was very funny. Like, last year, I remember some neighbor who I've literally never talked to in my life, like a few weeks before the tournament, was like, hey, is Archie playing for you guys again? I was like, what? Like, some like 6-year-old dude. So I'm like, the people on our street, it's a small street, there's like 12 houses on it. It's a little dead end street. They know about it. And we have like a little Facebook group, and like I'll always share the link to watch the games in our little Facebook group. So they know about it, they think it's cool. The year we made the final, like the mayor had like wrote a little letter to Matt and I, like saying congratulations and stuff. And we've had like little short segments on like our local news station, but it is cool that our neighbors know about it, because famously our street in like around us is known for the year before COVID, there was a giant sinkhole, and 2 of our houses like fell into a giant sinkhole like years ago. So like that's what we're known for. So it's cool to not be just the sinkhole street. We're also like the street that's got a basketball team.
I think it'd be really funny if you actually, because most fan bases for this are attached to the school. Like, just having if you guys were able to win one, you just have like a little parade in the cul-de-sac, just go all the way down, turn around the cul-de-sac, come right back, just like carry the trophy. It'd be about 37 seconds long, just kind of walk around it.
Honestly, the biggest thing, and I give Matt a lot of crap about this, is that after 12 years, Matt's still never been to Eberlein Drive. That's crazy.
I haven't either. We talked about me when I was in Detroit, but I think I did Detroit for a basketball game. I think you weren't available. I think when I went out.
Probably. I mean, it's also like I'm like probably a half hour from the city downtown. It's like it's a strange place to be from and get to, but again, I hold a lot of pride in it. I give Matt a lot of credit for, even when we first teamed up, we had a little bit of back and forth about what we wanted to name it, and Matt stuck with it, and now I think Matt holds a lot of pride in the name too, as does Vinny, and so it's really like I said, us and Sideline Cancer are the only 2 people to still do this. And while we could sell out, and we did do the Stickmen the 1 year, it's like at this point, like we're almost more stubborn than ever, because like we want to keep the Eberlein name alive, just to almost like, we love TBT, but almost to like stick it to TBT and be like, you can try everything, you're not getting rid of us, basically.
There's an honor in being too stupid to kill. Like, and I've described you guys to your faces, by the way, this way, and I've said it admiringly. Is like, you guys are literally too dumb to kill. Like, and I've said that, and I said that admiringly. I said that with all respect. Is like they probably would get rid of you guys if they can, and it just can't. You're like basically the evil. You're the guy at the movie who's just unkillable. You're the ethical zombies of TBT. And now I'm off on a rant no one cares about. So we talked about it last year. We talked about this. Okay, great job, guys. Wonderful. Really proud of you guys. Done. New year. Okay, so this is a really interesting bracket, and I'll just let the sort of the interesting thing out now is you guys do really well when you're the hunter. When Eberlein Drive has slip-up years is when you're the hunted. Well, you guys got a good seed. Your history of good seeds isn't nearly as good as your history of bad seeds. When you guys are a 5 or a 6 or something, you tend to go deep. When you guys are at 1 or a 2, you guys tend to face plant. So is there some concern about, hey, every time we get a good seed, some green team from Texas or some nonsense happens? So, Vinny, you take that. Like, expectations, you're the hunted now. What's that like?
Yeah, so I don't know if Matt and Jake will admit this, but they always go back, where should we go, what region? But I bring that type of energy to the club. Like, let's bring it to Kentucky's front door. Let's stop traffic in Kentucky and keep it pushing. That's what we like to do. We'll bring it to your front door. We'll knock and say, like, come outside. Let's come play. Roll the ball out.
Yeah, it's a fun region. So looking at this real quick, so it's fun. I'm looking at the right now. You've got on your side, you have your first opponent's Richards Elite, which has Walt Lemon Jr., who's been a very good player in this for Team 23, a really good killer, and Richards, who's actually won this before. So that's kind of a core. So that's kind of a Fugazi 7 seed. Like that's not a 7 seed. So TBT, if you don't follow this, the seedings have very little reality based on what they actually mean. Like, try to give seeds they like, but what they want to do is they want to manufacture gate. I've never given any grief to this. I've had Dan on the show before. Dan Frill's the co-CEO of this, and he's openly said, like, we need to make money. So we want to make sure the teams that have followings get matchups that are favorable to keep getting eyeballs. And while everybody who's a lifer loves Eberlein Drive, they're never once in their entire lives going to give you a favorable see if they help it. So I think the 7 is kind of a 4 or a 3. So like coming around the box, like how difficult an opening game could this end up being?
I mean, certainly not easy. I think, we talk about this even in TST2, like you hate playing against teams that know what they're doing, that have been through it. You want to play newbies ideally, just because not only TBT being tough in its own right, but like teams that don't have experience in the Elam ending a lot of times tend to shoot themselves in the foot. But Richards himself, who's from our knowledge playing as well as being the GM, he's won this thing. He's someone we've talked to and tried to get on Eberlein Drive in previous years. And so he knows what he's doing. Walt knows what he's doing. They have a couple other guys who have also played in TBT before. So, I mean, they're a team who, if we take lightly, would come out and punch us in the mouth. So, we know that you can't take anybody lightly. Like you said, we've been high seeds before and gotten smacked around. So, like, we're certainly not coming in like with a look ahead to Kentucky or something like that.
I need to see you guys do something you did to Doug Gottlieb. I need to see that one more time. That's fantastic.
So
Matt, so Matt, looking at this too, honestly, is like with these matchups too. The big problem, the advantage of playing a team like Richards Elite in the first round, this advantage, as Jake said, is they have experience playing this. They're TBT guys. The advantage though for you guys though is you got tape to scout. You can scout some of these guys in the native habitat TBT. You know what they're about. So it's a double-edged sword. They have experience, so they're going to be a little more prepared, but also you guys know what they're about. So will that help your preparation a little bit in the first round?
Yeah, I think so. I think another thing that contributes to a team being prepared is just the fact they've gone through it. There's probably a higher likelihood that people show up because they know just how on top of things you need to be. They know how players have, and I say this with all due respect to other teams, it's happened to us a ton of times, with even best intentions, guys no show or flake last minute. But if guys have played in it before or have been in it, the likelihood of that happening is significantly lower. And so you see a team like Richards Elite as opposed to, say, X-rated or, the Louisiana Tech alumni team, new teams that have never been in it, players that have probably watched it but don't really understand exactly how it all works. I would bet there's a higher chance that some of those guys maybe no show than maybe players that have played before if I was to bet on it. So I think that's something else where it helps a team that's been in it to have guys that have had the success. They have been preaching the importance of being on time and organized and having a training camp because they know you have to be organized to win this tournament. And so I would imagine Richards Elite is one of those teams that's going to be prepared and going to know kind of what it takes to have a run in something like this. So certainly not what we'd love to see, but we kind of got to the point to Vinny's comment earlier too. Like at this stage in TBT 2025, you're going to have to beat really good teams to win this tournament. And so you can't try to duck or dodge teams just by picking a different region or whatever. And the rankings, the seeding kind of falls as they do, because I know there's some different factors that play into how they actually happen. And so we kind of, leading up to the brackets being released, I think we were pretty much spot on, or Jake was, on his mock seeding of this field, just from what we knew and kind of how they would probably set things up and what the matchups could be. So we were prepared, but nonetheless, yeah, we can't take them lightly. From Jake and Vinny and I's perspective, like we don't need to convince us that. It'll be on our coach and players to recognize that. But I think returning some of the guys that we do have, returning some great leaders and guys that have had the success, hopefully they'll kind of preach that for us. But
Definitely. So we'll talk a little bit about your roster now, because I mean we'll talk a little bit about what happens if we win a couple games in a minute. Because like you're set up right at Richards Fleet. If you win, you got the new Duncan Dogs, which is a Louisiana Tech team. I did see that there's some players that are coming back to America. I did see of all people, I think Kenneth Lofton played there. I noticed that he is in America now, and I'm wondering if he shows up for this. This would be one of those things I'm kind of curious about, because that would be he could score buckets in a big way. And of course, Tampa pick up basketball, not a lot to know about the 6th seed, but they've got, Darius Johnson Odom, so they've got a really quality player there who's a former champion of the Golden Eagles of Marquette. So your side's going to be a bit of a mess anyway, and we'll talk about what that means if you can get past to what will be an absolute war, the potential war-ready La Familia game, which would be a lot of fun, a big SEC battle. So it's a very box office-y kind of region. But let's talk about your team for a minute. I'm going to kind of tee you up for the player I think is most kind of attached to you. And I want to talk first about the guy I was most impressed with in the run last year for your team, which was Anthony Clements. He was a big bucket for you guys. Part of the reason you guys did have a little bit of the hard game is he had his only bad game in the tournament in the final game he played, because he was the killer of worlds for 4 straight games. Like, he was an absolute bucket. So which one of you wants to talk about Anthony for a minute?
Go ahead,
Vinny.
Vinny.
I got something else for you. No, I got Vinny. Vinny's going to talk about Gabe. I want to talk to one of you guys
All right.
about.
I'll talk about Sap. Anthony Clemens goes by Sap.
Okay.
But he's a guy that we recruited for years prior to ever playing with us last year. And I remember the last year when he finally committed, Jake and I have like PTSD about guys saying they're in and then not being in. So I'm the worst at like being overbearing and continually texting him. And I remember he so much just said, he's like, Matt, I'm in. Like, if I say I'm in, like, I'm 100% locked in. And he meant it. Like, from day one, the very first practice, he's a true pro. He's played at the highest levels. He's played in huge games. He's respected by his peers. And I think his leadership was massive for us. And so, I mean, literally, 3 hours ago, we were on a Google Meet with him, talking about the roster, talking about the last few guys we're trying to add. And he's an integral part of our team. And not only for what he brings on the court, scoring, passing, but leadership. He's truly, cliche as it sounds, like a coach on the floor. While we had an amazing coach last year in Jordan Sternkamp, and that was a big part of our success too. Like, even Jordan made comment like, "Oh, if Sap's out there, like, we're good. Like, I don't have to worry about it. He knows what he's doing." So, yeah, he's a huge part of the team. He was a guy that we said from day one we want him back. And in the locker room after we lost, he was like, "Let's run it back." But even then, like, time passes. These guys have long seasons, and their off season is short. So you're kind of crossing your fingers, like, will he be back? Will he be back? And sure enough, he said he's in, and we knew what that meant. So we're excited to have him back for sure.
Yeah. So I saw him put in work when we were in Indiana watching that game. So I know exactly what kind of scoring and what kind of leadership he provides. Okay, so you guys have a new TI. This guy, this is attached to Vinny when he was with Friday Beers, and an absolute killer, an all TBT level player. How did Gabe York find his way to the Drive, Vinny?
So actually, Gabe was a Team Jimmy V commit, and then he was a Team Dickie V commit when we were going to do it in honor of Dick Vitale. Then he ended up getting called up to the Pacers that year, so he didn't play. So I couldn't get him with Friday Beers that first year. And then Matt and Jake can attest to this part right here. Getting them to play in their first TBT is very difficult. Once they get into TBT and play for that first time, they love it. So Gabe has been the one, like, once I know what my schedule looks like, I'm in. And he's back, and he's just another guy that's been all in. So what he did for a Friday beer, honestly, he's going to get buckets. That's what he does. So having a guy like him next to Sap is probably, to me, one of the best backcourts in the event.
Yeah, and then you talk about those guys, and you have an army of other quality players. So Jake, we've talked about Gabe, we've talked about Clemens. Is there another backcourt? Because you guys have a lot of guards on this team. Is there a backcourt guy who you want to highlight here? I mean, maybe talk a little bit about Terrell Brown or Terry Taylor. Like, those guys are really, really good.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll highlight Terrell Brown again. I mentioned him earlier. He was somebody who committed to us like last year. Even coming in, we didn't know much about him, honestly. Like, we knew he was G League player, good player from Washington, but we didn't really know what to expect. And came in last year, no ego. He came off the bench, but was immediately like our best defender, an absolute dog, controlled our second unit incredibly, and every single game we were putting him on the best offensive player on the other team. He honestly was, for most of the game, completely shutting down Yogi Ferrell in the Indiana game. And then come our Final Four game in Houston, when we were down double digits almost the entirety of the game, he basically took over in the fourth quarter, was hitting ridiculous mid-range jumpers and ones all over the place. And although we ended up losing on a Rob Gray jumper, if Rob Gray misses that, we probably come down and score and win the game. And he is honestly 90% responsible for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a pretty good roster. And listen too, like you guys have a plethora of just, I mean, Slaughter, Clemens, Clark, or excuse me, Slaughter, Clemens, York, Brown, Taylor. That's as good a backcourt combination or depth chart you're going to see in TBT. You might have a few guys who maybe might compete at one or two spots, but a 5-pack of guards that good, you're not going to see in a TBT team. Lacking size as per the website. I know websites aren't the most updated. You know things that we don't know yet because it's your team, obviously. But look at the 8 there. No one besides one guy, Watson, taller than 6'7". So at the supermarket, I assume you're looking for size. Is that the next step to get this team where it needs to go?
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
think
Vinny.
Vinny, go on.
You're muted. Oh, he's tied up.
That's
Oh,
fine.
that's
Fine. So he's got to go. He's
No,
got
I'm
he's
here.
got
I'm
he's got
here. I'm
goals.
here.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
bad. I'm at the gym. These kids are running around wild over here. But yeah, so actually Nate Watson is, 6'9", 6'10", Providence, all Big East, great. Terry Taylor, even though he's only 6'5", if anyone goes out there and YouTube some Terry Taylor clips, he plays, much bigger than 6'5", and his offensive rebounding and just physicality kind of make up for that. But yeah, in terms of our roster as a whole, like when you look at the depth we've been putting together, Aubrey Dawkins, TBT experience, Cody Clark, 6'7", TBT vet at this point. So you got guys that you could kind of slide multiple positions, and they also understand the event. And, well, also Tyler Stone, if you're out there listening, you'll probably get a call from us here shortly because we've been having a little back and forth. We need our guy back. But, yeah, we're definitely in the market for another big man and trying to place these last few spots here correctly.
Definitely. And you guys have a good roster, so getting the finishing touches is pretty much all you got to do. Okay, we've talked a while, so let's kind of get some things to close this out so you guys go about your lives. You've been very generous with your time, and I want to make sure that Jake can start reading all those books behind him. So let's get the last questions for Jake and Matt. I'll give you each one, and you guys can take the one you want. So I'll offer this one first. The matchup potentially for able to pass the first 2 runs will probably be either War Ready or La Familia. La Familia is probably the favorite in the region. Neither Charge or I picked them. No Charge did pick them. But they don't have Bledsoe on the roster, which is one thing I'm interested in. Maybe he shows up, maybe he doesn't, but that's a big part of their backcourt that's missing. They're still a good team. They're still probably should be the favorites. But how much fun would it be to beat Kentucky in Lexington?
Oh, I mean, it would.
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, it would be the best. That's why we're going to Kentucky. Like Vinny said, while we are the 2 seed, like we still feel like the underdogs because everyone thinks Kentucky's going to win the region. TBT tweeted out their whole roster today, saying how great they are, and they are. And they also have Archie Goodwin, who was with us for the last 3 or 4 years. There's
Great player.
Great. We love Archie. We talked to him about it. Like we understand going to your alumni. We lose guys to alumni all the time. But I mean, the other day I was rewatching games from last year and just how crazy it was in that environment. And so to go into a raucous environment, kind of like we did with Butler and Indiana last year, and knocking them off, like that's what we want. I want Gabe York or Sapp hitting a game winner and waving by to the crowd. Like those are the moments you live for in TBT.
Absolutely. So Matt, we're going to do one more question on this, but I'll ask you the last real question, Matt. So Eberlein Drive always is looking for fans because you guys are a culture team, almost a cult team in TBT. There will be a lot of people in Lexington are there to root for Kentucky. There will be a small segment of people there to root against Kentucky who hate Kentucky. How are you going to get those guys behind you?
Well, I think for one, we do have a few guys with Kentucky in their blood. So guys that are from Louisville or Bowling Green that are committed to playing with us. Some of our coaching staff and training staff has Kentucky ties. And so from perspective of just getting their friend and family, these guys are guys that plays overseas or are away from their families a lot of times. For them to be able to have Their friends there, I think they're already talking about, putting the word out and trying to get as many as they can. But ultimately, I think, a compelling argument to make is just, of course, the home team is going to have a lot of fans, but everybody else that's not for the home team should be rooting for us, for the team that, doesn't maybe get all the love. And we're a little bit of an underdog, but those are the best stories in my opinion. So that would be the argument I'd make for why to root for Eberlein Drive.
Yeah, I think Jake just got his card pulled. But saw there's someone came up behind him, so I don't know what the hell he's backing on. Let's see what it is. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Ooh, okay.
No, we good. We good.
Quiet about. Something to be quiet about. Uh-oh, here we go. Jake just got arrested for something. Was that ICE that come to your door? So anyway, okay, here we go. Last question, and we're going to Lexington. So I got to ask you guys, what is your favorite bourbon?
Oh,
Benny, what's your favorite bourbon?
You asked the wrong
question,
crew.
Hater. Matt and I don't drink at all. This is bad.
I forgot. Yeah, you guys are both good boys. And you don't drink either, Benny, do you?
I'm in a committed relationship, so I'll probably just be on FaceTime with my girl every night after the games. So.
What does that have to do with drinking bourbon? I ask a drink, you're in a committed relationship. I didn't ask what you. Oh God,
We're water boys. We're water boys.
Chick-fil-A.
You are, yeah, I actually buy that. I forgot. I always forget you guys don't. You guys, I'm the alcoholic of the bunch. Never mind. Okay, that's fine. Well, that's a fair question. Okay, well in that case, then. By the way, I will say one last thing. Let you guys go. I do have a bounty on Louisville. So if you get to Louisville and you beat them, obviously I pay out a bottle of whiskey. So you have to ask your teams if you play Louisville what they like. That's the people who drink the whiskey. Okay. Jake, Matt, Vinny, Eberlein Drive. Can they win the whole thing this year? That's the question. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanner.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hainer. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.